Hello, and welcome to tonight's book study, Rise of the False Gods. And I am Reverend Alicia Leslie, and invite you to check out the book if you don't already have it, Rise of the False Gods. It's on Amazon, or you can, on Amazon, you can get it on Kindle, and if you're a Prime member, you can even get it for free. So check out the book because it's all about transformation through illumination. And boy, could we use some illumination today. This is the first video you've seen. I invite you to go to YouTube and type in Rise of the False Gods, Alicia Leslie, and you can get all the videos on the book. You can also get the videos that I have posted every day that are about our historic hunkered down, home alone together, happy holidays. It's about how to be happy through these holidays where we cannot see each other person to person, but we can be face to face. Well, we can be face to screen, and but that helps, doesn't it? Okay, well, let's get to our study. I think the study may be early tonight because yesterday I was on such a tear. Hoping I can stay a little bit more on target tonight. So let's see. I did not make it through the first page last night. Blew my mind. All right. So I left off yesterday asking you, what do you know without a doubt to be true? And do know that I welcome questions and comments. I may or may not see them right away, but when I do, I will answer if I see them in lifetime, I will probably answer them if I can. If not, I will answer later. So, what do you know without a doubt to be true? Think on that. Were you thinking on it last night? Well, let's look at it a little bit more deeply. One thing I know to be true is that 1 and 1 is 2. I know because I can demonstrate it. If I had an apple and you gave me an apple, I would have 2 apples. I could cut each apple in half and have 4 pieces of apples, but I wouldn't have 4 apples. So, think on that. Now, some quantum physicists could probably come up with some kind of a theory as to why that wouldn't be so, but what I know is if you had an apple and I had an apple and you gave me an apple, I would have 2 apples. This I absolutely know to be true. Now, you could possibly count the seeds in the apple, but you couldn't count the apples in the seeds, right? That's true. That is an unknown. So we look forward to having many, many apples come from our apple seed, but we cannot count them. What do we know to be true? If you plant that apple seed, you're going to get apples unless you, and I don't care how much you pray over it and ask it to be pears, you plant an apple seed, you're going to get apples. Anything else would be magical thinking. Okay. Again, I ask yourself the question about everything you see or read. What do I know? You know, I remember, yes, Cheryl says, I know I am a daughter, a sister, a mother, an aunt, a cousin, and a friend. And a good friend at that, I would say. Yes, there are things we know, but what I've learned is as I get older, I realize more and more about how much I don't know. When I was being graduated from high school, the vice principal got up in front of the graduating class and said, "There are so many things I could tell you tonight, but I'm not going to waste my time because you think you already know it all." Ain't that the truth? Think of all the things you thought you knew when you were in school and how much you've learned and the understanding of how much you have to learn. And I realized that when I was in school, my thinking was all in the lower two quadrants of consciousness. The human thinking, the carnal thinking, and human lower consciousness emotions. So the human emotions and the human thoughts. Over time, I was always aware of God. I was a good little Catholic girl, I was. And but as I came, when I found unity and everything, so many things expanded. Now, I was on a spiritual journey before I found unity, and I explored things from Edgar Cayce to Scientology. Oh yeah, you can find little bits of truth in everything. But I also learned that not everything is what I think, feel, or believe. Okay, so let's look at this. When learning to drive a car, students attend classes. First comes book study, followed by practical application. When the student completes the book lessons, he or she knows about driving a car. They might know about how a car operates, and they may know about even what the rules of the road are, because you can't get your license till you know that. Then we have the practice. You got to get out on the road and practice the driving. When I think about that, I think back to when my granddaughter was learning to drive. I don't know how I made it through it. I just don't, because I'd be the one out there practice driving with her. And, I'd be like slamming on my invisible brakes. And I think one of our scariest moments was when we were driving down Washington Street in Middletown, Connecticut one day. And it's like 2 and 3 lanes going each way. And all of a sudden comes a fire engine right at us. And there was no place for us to go. Oh, bless our hearts, and especially hers as a novice driver. All I know is when I got home, every time we were out, it was like, okay, I'm home. I made it through one more. And when she got her license, I was one of the happiest people on the planet. But she was still a new and relatively inexperienced driver. I remember my niece would call me up and she'd say, "Sammy was behind me on my way to work today and she follows too close." Then she got a ticket for following too close. She didn't follow too close anymore. Paying off that ticket was not a pleasant thing. Let us continue. Practical experience, they know about driving, they're not drivers. Once they have some experience to add to their book learning, they have to make the critical decision whether to abide by the rules of the road they learned in driving school or to follow the coaxing of peers and push beyond the limits of the law. To not know the law is ignorance. To know the law and not abide in it is ignorance. So we know about it, but we don't follow it. That is also known as the S word. Sin. I know. Some folks don't like that word. But the thing is, it is what it is. It's error. It's making a mistake, and until and unless we correct it, we open ourselves up to not only tickets, but accidents, and nobody wants to have an accident. Okay. Every day, smart people make foolish choices. We have the choice. We must learn to make right choices. And where are those right choices? They're all in our mind. And when I say mind, I can be thinking lower mind or higher mind. There's that part of us that thinks, oh, it's only a little bit more. It's only, going through one stop sign. That's smart. Here's an experiment for you, okay? Now, you can't do this right now. You're going to have to do that on your own. Not in Connecticut tomorrow, I'll tell you that, because I don't think anybody in Connecticut's going anywhere tomorrow. The storm has started, and please be praying with me that we don't lose our power, and let's pray for the safety of all who are going to be impacted by this storm. Let's see everybody safe, warm, and off the road. That's it right there. Common sense tells you don't go out on the road when the weather's bad. That's common sense. That's where accidents happen. That's where you interfere with emergency vehicles and plows that have to get through. But how many people think it's a joyride? Is that smart thinking? Or is that conscious thinking? Or is it self first? And that would be, let's say, worshiping or giving worth to the false god called Baal, which is self, which is self-centered, all that stuff. It's thinking of, not of the law, which is absolute, eternal, and unchanging for everybody, for our highest good. It's doing what you want anyway. We do it a lot. We might, run up an extra charge, eat something that we shouldn't eat, and wonder why we don't lose weight. So this is your exercise for when you can drive. And for those of you who are not being impacted by the storm, take a 30-minute drive, okay? Be sure to drive the speed limit or the allowable 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, weather and road conditions allowing. Watch how many people pass you at excessive speed, pass in a no passing zone, honk their horn, etc. Everyone knows the speed limit is a requirement, not a suggestion. It is the law. Many people choose not to abide in it. They think they are above the law. Sometimes, because they don't get thought, they think that they don't get caught. They think that they escaped, but they didn't. Sooner or later, the universe is going to come around and bite you in the butt. So do that experiment and watch. We've got an area that's probably 3 miles from me, and every time I drive that road, I wind up with knots in my stomach. I live in the country, and there is a road that goes to Middletown from Moodus, and there's a lot of no passing zones because there's hills and hairpin turns and sharp corners, and I will have people whipping past me, Matter of fact, I wasn't out here in Connecticut. I was in Indiana when I had the crash that I've talked about before with my my wonderful Honda Accord. It's the accident that killed the Accord, but thank God I was spared. But I was very nervous because the guy behind me was very anxious for me to pull out, and I was trying to be careful. I didn't know where I was. I pulled out, and I got slammed by someone who was speeding and drinking. And but I don't want to go there. But it's that whole thing. We think, and sometimes we're just trying not to have anybody yelling at us because we're going too slow, and they're going to be thinking we don't know how to drive, all that stuff. Okay. There's another learning of aspect of learning or knowledge called osmosis. This is when information or concepts come to a person with no conscious effort. It can be positive or negative depending on whether the source is influence, and we talk about influence being the inflowing energy of others that were surrounding us, or inspiration, which is from higher consciousness, and perhaps even the guidance of angels, guides, spirit, our own higher Christ consciousness. For example, I have lived in many states, and one of those states is Texas, and I've lived in California. I've lived in the Midwest in Unity Village in Missouri, Lee Summit, Missouri. I have lived in many areas, and what happens is after you live there a while, you start to pick up the speech or the mannerisms of the people that you are immersed in. Now, even now, I've been back to Connecticut for 16 years, but there's times when I will be slipping into my y'all from Texas, or I will be doing my real kind of a Connecticut, New York thing, which I do. And you don't even think about it. It's just a part of your experience and wherever your mind is at that moment. I'm just trying to impress you on the fact that some things, attitudes and mannerisms, are even contagious. Ways of thinking, ways of being, and it's either conscious or unconscious. It's not a mystery. I see it as the absorption or harmonizing with the vibration that surrounds us. Some people call it getting caught up in what was going on. People who are awakened to principle strive to live their beliefs and become living examples for those who desire enlightenment. This is why we have to be very, very cautious of regarding who comes into our orb of influence. Now, if you're talking about astrology, which is, I know a lot of people go, nothing, a bunch of silliness. That's okay. I've studied it and taught it even for years. I don't live every day checking my chart. I can't tell you the last time I looked at my chart, but I do know a lot of things about my nature and transits and stuff. Matter of fact, there's some pretty hairy transits going on between now and February, which really are reflected in what's happening. Do those planets have energy that is affecting us? Everything is energy, and it's not like planets have power. It's like everything has power. And I don't know how the early astrologers figured it all out, but I do know this. I know that the transits that we are experiencing right now are impacting us in a very powerful way. This is not an astrology class. What I'm trying to say is, when two planetary energies get close to each other, they call that being within its orb of influence. Now, we might say it's vibration. Think about walking down the street and someone is walking toward you. You are consciously or unconsciously going to be responding to the energy, let's say the aura energy of the person who is approaching you. And there are people who can see auras. I'm not one of those, but I do believe there are people who see auras, and the colors of our aura change according to what we're going through. If we're angry, if we're peaceful, if we're happy, if we're in love, that glow. Remember, you say, oh, that person's pregnant, they've got that glow. you know, these things are very real. So, and they will recognize them more the more we accept the possibility they're real. Well, let's go back to where we are. We're all energy. We're giving off our energy all the time. When you are approaching a person, you are coming within their orb of influence, their energy. You have your choice to receive it. We read each other this way. This is why we really can't tell if we need to kind of avoid someone who's coming at us if we feel bad energy. This is nothing spooky. It's just the way it is. It's a part of our survival instinct as much as anything else. You know, they always talk about, you know, a dog senses fear. Yeah, they do. And if we allow ourselves to get into our higher mind that's not pulled down by the gravitational pull of human opinions and the way it is, we will find that this is a good thing to be able to read the energies and feel the energies around us. And it's just like an alert system. It's just like, oh, okay. But so we go by the energy of the people around us. Now, sometimes that energy of someone around us, especially if we're not being strong in consciousness at that moment, can draw us in. It can draw us into an instance of getting involved in gossip, in unhealthy relationships, in unhealthy ways of thinking and feeling and acting. But ultimately, we have that choice. This is why, again, and I say this over and over, hoping, I know you're probably thinking, oh my God, she's going there again. Yeah, I am. Because sometimes we need to hear it over and over again before we start to absorb it. Going back to that, prayer and meditation is very important to take us out of the thickness, the lower vibration of our lower consciousness and lift ourselves up. Sometimes it's like going up an elevator and leaving the world behind. I do that in my prayers sometimes, and I see myself, I visualize myself lifted above, and the world is below me, not beneath me. I am still a human being, but I am a spiritual being living in a spiritual world governed by spiritual law. I'm also a human being living in a human world. Okay, where was I? It was about prayer and meditation. So I was saying I elevate myself so that all my concerns are below me. And I can connect with the higher, the strength, the truth. All things work together for good for those who love the Lord. And that means the consciousness of divine mind, and it means spiritual law, spiritual principle. If we love, not like romantic love, but if we love, love is the great attracting power of the universe. And if we love good and all things that are good and each other, okay? If we work to live up there, we probably will get sucked in. We're human beings. We're going to run around on the planet and be influenced. Try to keep remembering the difference between influence and inspiration. So try to be inspired rather than influenced. And if you find you're being influenced and you're feeling slimed, you know you feel it. You feel like you got to take a shower sometimes after having a cup of coffee with someone. But take that spiritual shower and lift yourself, lift your consciousness up to, like I use affirmations, like there's one presence and one power in the universe and in my life, God, the good, omnipotent. Well, that was a little side trip. Okay. But that's okay because we're making it tonight. We're making it through the chapter tonight. Okay, so when we are in someone's orb of influence, we can either receive it or we can release it, reject it. When we pray, it's always a wonderful practice to see ourselves surrounded by white light, which is the purest energy, and just see ourselves divinely protected and really open up then to spirit. One of my favorite things that I say in my prayer time is I say, I am open and receptive, God, to your living spirit of truth. And I can open up because I am focused on the higher energy that is God, that is all good. Okay. All right. Oh, haha. Lost my place. Okay. While there are many who have awakened, many others have not. Until we are all awake, we cannot experience the true joy of wholeness and oneness. Once we have become awakened, it is our responsibility to help others, not through coercion or force. You cannot convert someone. It's like dragging your kids to church. If they don't want to go to church, if this isn't feeding them, you might be able to bring them along with you, make them sit through the service, but that doesn't mean they're believing anything that is said. God does that good work. The same way as when I walked into my first Unity church, I knew I was home, and that was for me. But every church, every denomination serves the people who are ready at that stage for that teaching. So I'm not going to tell you Unity is the only church. I'm going to say, go to the church that feeds your soul. So some have awakened, some have not, but until we all know we're one, that doesn't mean we're all unity. It means we all know that we are interdependent and related on a spiritual level as children of God. At that time, things can change. And we don't change by trying to coerce or convert. We change by living our life and being willing to learn, live, and share the spiritual principles as God is presenting an opportunity to us. I've said before that at the campground where I work for my sister and her husband during the camping season, Sunday mornings come and I'm at work. I don't have to. I can't go to church. I'm going to work. But I, first of all, am prayed up. I do my praying. I do my church every day. I listen to a service before I go to work. And when I'm there, I very often have a very small service, a very intimate service with a camper or two who pops in for a cup of coffee. And sometimes the same thing happens when I am out and about telling campfire stories. You would be surprised how many times in the chit-chat that happens, spirituality does come up, especially when you're telling ghost stories. So you are a minister wherever you are, as long as you are ministering to, which means caring for and sharing your light with others. Okay. This should be a snap, but it's not. Even though Jesus taught all we have to do is love God, love others, and love ourselves, Mammon and Baal, our love of the material realm, and our natural sensual beings, our ego, try to control us with laziness, narcissism, and the lies of separation and better than and holier than thou. Sometimes transformation is not mysterious. It is metaphysical and worth every effort. And while we're on this, I think I touched on it very briefly yesterday, but I want to talk about this because it is very prevalent in our circumstances today. and that is herd mentality. Herd mentality is what I mentioned earlier, saying when you just get caught up in something. I went through one of the most horrific experiences that a minister can go through, and that was church conflict. And it was so painful. And it was, you say, well, what was the cause? The cause was I am me and they are they. And it gets, sometimes it gets personal. There's, ministers have to follow a lot of rules, and other people don't understand the rules you follow. And it gets, every time it gets personal, that's where you can get in trouble. And I simply wasn't the minister that their former ministers were. I am a cheerleader. That's the kind of minister I'm up there, and sometimes you think you're in a comedy, stand-up comedy show when I'm up there doing my thing. Sometimes you think you're in a holy roller church. It depends on what spirit is bringing through me. But not everybody likes that style. And the ministers who preceded me were mom and pop. They were the ones, the very soft and cuddly and huggy. And, you know, I'm huggy. Don't get me wrong, I'm huggy. It's one of the hardest things about this COVID thing. I'm not getting my hug rations, you know. But I just didn't, you know, and when they let personality, that they did not like my personal style, come into it, and most ministers have got a kind of a Jesus complex. We want everyone to love us, but we have to remember not everybody loved Jesus, or he never would have been crucified, right? So, but it was very, very painful. But what happened is some gossip started, some disgruntled people started. They went underground and they did their thing. I was panicked. I didn't know what to do. By the grace of God, I had a mentor, and I got counseling while I was in it, and I held to the truth, called in the association to assist us in it so that we could come through it in a healthy way. But what was at work there was a herd mentality. Some people started it, and there was no truth in a lot of what was said, but the people chose to believe it because their friends said it. Therefore, is it true? And some of it was so outlandish, but I'm not going there. I've gotten through it, healed it, worked it out. I'm a happy camper, but watch out for herd mentality. This can happen at your job. It can happen in your family. It can happen in a club or group you belong to. And as we know right now, it can happen to a whole country. But if you understand what is going on, that the folks who are choosing, just like in the church conflict, the folks who are choosing to believe without evidence, without facts, without validation, but choosing because that's what they want on a personal level. That is one of the most dangerous forms of human consciousness, lower consciousness. We want to have a consciousness that is based in truth, integrity, and honesty. And whatever our future holds, I invite you to know your daily experience is all in your mind and depends on what you do with it. You know, that's even true on a collective basis. So if you're in a club or a group and there's some energy going on that doesn't settle well with you, it could be gossip, it could be conflict brewing, it could be whatever, it could be rumors. Rumors, no good, no good. Let's take a spiritual shower and wash that stuff off. there was an old song. You know I always have a song or a movie to match it up with. And it was, I'm gonna wash that man right out of my hair. And we can think that way about, you know, our thoughts. So we're taking a shower. I'm going to wash those thoughts right out of my hair. I'm going to wash those thoughts right out of my hair. Whew. I even do that during my prayer time, only I don't. I just kind of like take away the negative thoughts and throw them in the pool of transformation. Okay, well, I hope you have a great rest of your day and tomorrow. And let's see. Yep, I will see you tomorrow. And let's see what we're going to be looking at then. It will be where there is no vision. This is really important. And guess what? It's not going to be so hard as the past few study group meetings have been. So yay! All right, I hope I see you tomorrow. Have a blessed and beautiful time until then. Bye-bye.